There are hours the world does not see. Hours before alarms rattle and engines roar, before phones flash with messages, before the weight of schedules presses itself upon you. In those hours, tender, unclaimed, almost holy, heaven bends low. It is here, in the hush of dawn, that a private word is spoken to you. A word not shouted from pulpits or echoed in crowded rooms, but whispered like a secret meant for your ears alone. God has something to confess about you. This word arrives not with thunder, but with stillness. It is quiet so you cannot mistake it for the noise of the world. It is personal so you cannot confuse it with general announcements. It is given now, at this hour, so that you know it was meant to reach you before anyone else. Heaven wanted you to hear it raw, unfiltered, unedited, like first light breaking over the horizon. You may wonder, why me? Why now? Because your heart has been carrying questions it never dares to ask aloud. Because you have been wearing the garments of strength even while exhaustion gnaws at the edges of your spirit. Because you have been faithful in ways no one clapped for, and weary in ways no one noticed. God chooses these hidden places to release His most unexpected truths. The dawn is not for the crowds, it is for the one who waits in quiet. This is not the kind of confession meant to expose your shame, it is the kind that reveals your worth. The divine is not wringing hands in disappointment, but opening arms in delight. The confession is this: you have been seen, you have been wanted, and you have been loved far deeper than you have yet believed. It is a word of remembrance, calling you back to the core of your creation, to the moment when the breath of God formed you with intent and smiled at the result. Receive this as if you were holding a fragile letter in trembling hands. Read it with reverence. Let it strike against the walls of doubt and break them down. The sun is rising outside your window, but a greater light is rising within. And before this day unravels into demands and distractions, let this confession anchor you. God has something to say about you, and He chose to speak it to you first. There is a story you have been telling yourself for far too long. It arrived quietly, subtly, like a shadow at the edge of a candlelit room, and over time, it became almost indistinguishable from the truth. That story whispered, "You are not enough." It came clothed in humility, practicality, or realism, but it was never honest. It convinced you to shrink, to settle, to hide the brilliance within you, and to measure your worth by the applause or judgment of others. You learned to wear it like a uniform. You dressed in it each morning, polished it for public view, and carried it into every relationship, every decision, every dream you dared to entertain. You measured your successes against it, and you measured your failures with it. The lie became both lens and mirror, distorting reality and keeping the truth at bay. But God's unexpected confession interrupts that story, like dawn breaking over the night sky. The lie is false. It is not true because your value does not come from the world's approval, your performance, your productivity, or the narrow categories others have imposed upon you. Your worth is intrinsic. It is woven into the fabric of your being from the very moment you were formed. Before anyone could doubt you, before you could doubt yourself, heaven declared you enough. This does not mean that your mistakes, regrets, or failures are erased. They exist. They teach. They shape. But they do not define. The lie seeks to make you small because it depends on your self-doubt to survive. The confession from heaven dismantles it gently yet firmly. You are not your mistakes. You are not your shortcomings. You are not the sum of other people's opinions. You are made for purpose, designed for life, and capable of more than you have allowed yourself to believe. Notice how the lie made you hide. You tucked your gifts away, muted your voice, softened your edges. Vulnerability felt dangerous because it exposed the parts of you others could misuse or misjudge. But God's confession transforms this perception. Your cracks are not vulnerabilities to exploit, they are windows through which light passes. When you stop pretending, when you dare to show the authentic self, grace finds its place in your life. The confession says, "Bring me your brokenness, and I will make it your strength." The lie also made you believe that you must earn love and acceptance. You tried to perform, to prove yourself, to accumulate achievements as currency for belonging. But the truth is liberating. Love was never contingent. Acceptance is not conditional. You were never a project to complete, an exam to pass, or a shadow to erase. The divine confesses, you are wanted as you are. I have seen you. I have known your heart, your struggles, your longings, and I delight in you. This confession reshapes your choices. When you truly believe you are enough, you stop sacrificing your soul to win approval. You begin to act from courage rather than fear, authenticity rather than expectation. You begin to speak the truth, pursue the dreams that stir your soul, and release the shame that has weighed you down for years. The lie will resist. It will attempt to whisper old doubts. But the divine word, spoken first and spoken clearly, is stronger. You are enough. You are chosen. You are beloved. Let this truth saturate your mind, your heart, your body. Speak it aloud when the lie returns. Practice it until it becomes second nature. Your life will begin to shift not because the world changes, but because the lens through which you see it has been corrected. You are not the lie. You are the confession. You are enough. There is a paradox in your life that the world rarely teaches. Weakness is not a disqualification. The moments you have considered your failures, your fears, your limitations, these are not the places where life abandons you. They are the very threshold where grace waits. The divine confesses, your weakness is not your enemy, it is your invitation. For too long, you have hidden your cracks, tucked your vulnerability behind masks of competence and self-sufficiency. You feared that anyone seeing your fragility would see you as unworthy. Yet, the Creator delights in the very spaces you have tried to cover. In the quiet corners of your life, where you have confessed doubt only to yourself, heaven has been present, ready to meet you with power and tenderness. Why does weakness hold this gift? Because pretense repels divine intervention, while honesty invites it. The moment you admit that you cannot do it alone, that your heart, your spirit, or your circumstance is fragile, you open the door for help that transcends human limitations. Strength often isolates. Weakness, when embraced with faith, connects. It allows the hand of God to enter, to fill, and to transform. The confession continues, your failures are not shameful stamps but sacred lessons. The very mistakes that made you flinch or doubt yourself are the materials God will use to craft empathy, insight, and wisdom. When you lean into vulnerability, you become a vessel for others' healing. Your scars, once hidden, become beacons of hope. The gift is not in avoiding weakness but in navigating it with truth, courage, and faith. Consider this, your fragility creates resonance. People recognize authenticity because it mirrors the human experience they cannot always admit. The divine uses your honesty about struggle to illuminate paths for others. You are being positioned to minister not from perfection, but from lived experience. In your weakness, others will find strength, not because of you, but because the divine chose to work through you. Do not misunderstand this confession. Embracing weakness is not an excuse for passivity. It is not permission to linger in despair. It is an invitation to align with grace, to accept help, and to act with courage within your limits. Strength will follow, but it will be a strength refined, tempered, and authentic. So today, name your weaknesses. Speak them aloud to God. Let your honesty be the altar where transformation begins. Each admitted doubt, each confessed fear, each acknowledged limitation is a step toward the fullness of your purpose. The gift is hidden there, in the cracks, in the quiet, in the spaces where you thought you were too small. The divine voice whispers, I will meet you where you are. I will turn what you fear into the conduit for life. Your weakness is not a flaw, it is the seed of your awakening. Before the world weighed in, before voices of judgment and expectation shaped the lines of your life, there was a moment, a pure, unguarded moment, when you existed as heaven intended. You were formed with care, with purpose, with deliberate intention. Your origin story is not a tale of accident or oversight, it is a blueprint of divine design, painted in the colors of possibility, joy, and courage. The divine confesses now, I remember the real you, the you that existed before fear, comparison, and doubt rewrote your story. This remembering is not nostalgia. It is an awakening. The childlike wonder, the unpracticed laughter, the unfiltered curiosity. These are the seeds of who you were meant to be. Somewhere along the way, life's pressures and the expectations of others pressed down upon you, and the spark that once burned freely became dimmed under the weight of survival, correction, and self-doubt. Yet heaven never forgot. That spark is still alive, waiting for you to claim it again. Remembering your origin is a radical act of reclamation. It is saying to yourself, I am not what the world told me I am. I am who God made me to be. It calls you back to your inherent worth, to the dreams that once felt effortless, to the passions that stirred your soul before fear taught you to hide. The confession from God is tender but urgent. Return to the blueprint I designed. Let it guide your present, inform your decisions, and reclaim your sense of sacred identity. This act of remembrance also has a practical dimension. Begin to notice what brought you joy in your earliest memories. Revisit hobbies, creative pursuits, and dreams that felt sacred and untainted by performance or comparison. Ask yourself, when did I first feel alive? What were the small, unpolished things that made my heart expand? These fragments of memory are not merely sentimental. They are instructions for your soul. They show you where to invest your energy, what to protect, and which parts of yourself to cultivate once again. As you reconnect with this origin story, you will begin to see patterns you had forgotten. You will recognize the gifts that always belonged to you, gifts that were never dependent on approval or validation. The childlike courage you once had is still accessible, and it will serve you now in ways you could not have imagined back then. It will embolden you to take steps of faith, to speak truths you once silenced, and to pursue the life your spirit has always longed for. The divine reminds you, the world's story about you is not your final story. Your origin is the source of authority over every narrative that contradicts your worth. When life pressures you with doubt, criticism, or expectation, return to that place of origin. Let it remind you of your inherent value, your divine assignment, and your sacred potential. Today, claim that memory. Let it saturate your spirit. Let it shape your choices. And remember, the you that heaven first adored is the same you that will carry forth into the fullness of your purpose. You are not starting from scratch. You are returning to what has always been true. The confession is clear. I made you perfectly, and I delight in the blueprint of your soul. The divine confession extends now into the realm of your relationships, those sacred and sometimes turbulent spaces where your soul interacts with the world. God wants you to hear this truth before anyone else. You were not created to carry everyone's burdens, to absorb every offense, or to offer pieces of your spirit without discernment. There is holiness in boundaries. There is life in honesty. There is grace in sacred distance. And there is a divine purpose in choosing who you allow to anchor in the harbor of your heart. For too long, you have mistaken loyalty for sacrifice and obligation for love. You have stayed in draining situations because leaving felt selfish. You have silenced your voice to preserve the comfort of others. You have allowed people to define the measure of your worth, while secretly wondering if your needs, your heart, and your peace mattered at all. The confession from heaven is clear. You were never meant to be everyone's emotional landfill. You were never created to shrink yourself for the sake of others' comfort. Boundaries are not unkind. They are sacred. They are the divinely appointed fences that protect the garden of your soul. Saying no to one demand allows you to say yes to what aligns with your purpose. Stepping back from toxic influence does not make you cruel, it makes you wise. Protecting your spirit is a form of stewardship, and God rejoices when you honor the temple of your heart. Honesty is another cornerstone of sacred living. For too long, you have muted your truth to keep peace. You have hidden your thoughts, desires, and fears, fearing conflict, judgment, or rejection. Yet the confession comes again. Peace that is built on silence and pretense is not peace, it is stagnation. Speaking your truth with love is holy. Courageous honesty invites transformation. It clarifies relationships and frees your soul from the weight of hidden resentment. Speak the truth with intention, speak it with patience, speak it with grace, and watch as the divine aligns hearts with authenticity. Sacred distance is equally vital. Not all connections are meant to flourish in intimacy. Some relationships must be held at a distance, not in punishment, but in protection, for both your soul and theirs. Distance allows space for healing, for reflection, and for the divine orchestration of timing. The confession is tender yet firm. You will not be abandoned for choosing distance. You are stewarding your life wisely. Let go of relationships that sap your joy, diminish your vision, or demand more than they return. This is not rejection, it is recognition of sacred order. And yet, not all relationships require distance. Some are meant to walk beside you, to reflect God's steadfast love, and to nurture the parts of you that hunger for understanding. Seek these covenantal connections, those rooted in trust, honesty, and mutual care. Invest your time, your energy, and your heart in relationships that cultivate growth, encourage courage, and honor the divine blueprint within you. Finally, God's confession is both liberating and practical. Discernment is a gift. Use it. Allow your relationships to mirror the divine, generous, honest, patient, and life-giving. Protect your heart fiercely, love deeply but wisely, and remember that the space you create in your life is not emptiness, it is a sanctuary for grace to dwell. You are not too much for those who belong in your life, and you are not too little for those who leave. Honor the sacred rhythm of connection and separation, and let heaven's wisdom guide every step. Regret has a weight unlike any other. It lingers in the corners of memory, presses against your chest in quiet moments, and colors your perception of yourself and your choices. You may replay decisions, revisit mistakes, or mourn opportunities lost, and in doing so, you can become convinced that your past defines your present. Yet the divine confession rises above that weight, tender and unyielding. Your past is not your prison. Your mistakes are not your sentence. Your history is your classroom. God does not waste tears. Every moment you have stumbled, every heartbreak you have endured, every misstep you have carried alone, has been noted and preserved in the archive of mercy. The divine hand is patient and meticulous, repurposing what the world sees as shame into tools for life, empathy, and transformation. The confession is radical. Even your regrets can become ministry. Even your losses can become pathways for blessing. Redemption is not instant. It is a long obedience, a patient weaving of grace into the fabric of your story. You may not immediately see how your failures will bear fruit, and sometimes the lessons are subtle, emerging in conversations, opportunities, or acts of compassion you never expected. Yet, as you surrender your past into the hands of God, it begins to transform. The sorrow once heavy on your heart becomes a bridge for others. The errors you wish to erase become points of resonance, allowing others to hear, relate, and be healed. The art of repurposing is in the conscious choice to let your past serve rather than define you. Begin by acknowledging what has gone wrong, and then offering it up to the one who specializes in restoration. Confess mistakes aloud, not as a ritual of shame, but as an act of alignment. Seek to repair where possible, apologize where necessary, and release what cannot be changed. Each deliberate act of redemption frees a fragment of your spirit and repurposes it for good. There is also a divine timing to repurposing. The moments you feel most unworthy, most heavy with regret, are often the exact spaces where grace prepares to move. You do not need to wait for permission, nor to manufacture worth, it already exists. The confession reminds you, the same hand that authored your mistakes is writing your redemption. Trust the process, embrace the work, and allow the past to be a gift, not a chain. Regret is real, but it is not final. Redemption is possible, but it requires willingness. Repurposing is an art, and you are both the canvas and the brush. Today, choose to hand over your history to heaven. Let it become the story of resilience, compassion, and transformation. Let it point not to failure, but to the grace that always finds its way through. A confession is only as powerful as the life it inspires. Hearing the truth of who you are is sacred, but acting on it transforms revelation into reality. God's unexpected confession about you is meant to guide your choices, shape your days, and anchor your spirit. Here is a roadmap, not a rigid list, but a divinely inspired set of steps to help you live the truth you have received. 1. Begin with stillness. Each morning, before the world clamor reaches your ears, carve a space of silence. Breathe. Close your eyes. Let heaven whisper its truth. Hear the words, "You are beloved. You are enough. You are chosen." Let them settle in your heart and become the foundation of your day. 2. Name the lies and speak the truth. Write down the falsehoods you have carried, the whispers of inadequacy, fear, or doubt. Beside each, write the confession you have received from God. Read these aloud daily. Let the divine word overwrite the old narrative until truth saturates your being. 3. Take deliberate steps toward alignment. Choose one act this week that reconnects you with your origin story. It could be a long-forgotten dream, a shelved hobby, or a conversation you have been postponing. Let it be small but intentional, a seed of obedience that opens the door for grace to work in your life. 4. Set and honor boundaries. Identify one relationship that drains your peace. Pray, reflect, and establish a clear, gentle boundary. Boundaries are not rejection, they are sanctuaries for your soul. Protect your energy, protect your joy, protect your sacred space. 5. Confess and repair. Choose one regret you have carried and bring it to God in honesty. If possible, make amends with anyone affected. Release the weight of guilt and allow redemption to do its work. Let your past mistakes be transformed into instruments of growth and compassion. 6. Cultivate covenant relationships. Seek at least one connection that mirrors divine fidelity, someone who reflects honesty, trust, and mutual care. Nurture it intentionally. Let it remind you that you are supported and never alone in your journey. This roadmap is not a checklist for perfection. It is a guide to living aligned with the confession of heaven. Small, steady acts of obedience, reflection, and intentionality will compound into transformation. Follow it, and watch as the divine word you heard first begins to manifest in your daily life, shaping your story, restoring your soul, and guiding your path. You have heard this confession before anyone else, not by chance, but by divine design. It is a seed planted in the secret soil of your heart, a word meant to guide, heal, and transform. Now, as you stand at the threshold of the ordinary day, receive this benediction. May your spirit rise above the doubts that once weighed you down. May your heart be restored from every wound, and may your soul walk in the light of the truth you have been given. Carry this truth as armor and as compass. When the world questions your worth, remember that you were crafted with intention. When life pressures you with fear or comparison, remember that you are enough. When relationships challenge your peace, remember that boundaries, honesty, and sacred distance are acts of holiness. Let these principles guide your steps, shape your choices, and protect the sanctuary of your life. And now, move forward with courage. Take each day as an opportunity to live the confession you have received. Speak truth, embrace vulnerability, pursue joy, and allow your past to be repurposed into ministry and blessing. Walk boldly into the unfolding chapters of your life, knowing that heaven delights in you, supports you, and equips you for every step ahead. You were chosen to hear this first. Treasure it. Live it. Shine it. The world may not understand, but your life will bear witness to the power of divine truth revealed and embraced. Go forth, beloved, in courage, in love, and in grace. Amen.